From the PEP Radio Newsroom, these are the stories we are following at this hour. President Donald Trump is circumspect about his duties to uphold due process rights laid out in the Constitution, saying in a new interview that he does not know whether U.S. citizens and non-citizens alike deserve the guarantee. He also said he does not think military force will be needed to make Canada the 51st state, and played down the possibility he would look to run for a third term in the White House. The comments in a wide-ranging and at moments combative interview with NBC's Meet the Press came as the Republican president's efforts to quickly enact his agenda face sharper headwinds with Americans just as his second administration crossed the 100-day mark, according to a recent poll by the Associated Press NORC Center for Public Affairs Research. Trump, however, made clear that he is not backing away from a to-do list that he insists the American electorate broadly supported when they elected him in November. Here are some of the highlights from the interview with NBC's Kristen Welker that was taped Friday at his Mar-a-Lago property in Florida and aired Sunday. Critics on the left have tried to make the case that Trump is chipping away at due process in the United States. Most notably, they cite the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Salvadoran man who was living in Maryland when he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador and imprisoned without communication. Trump says Abrego Garcia is part of a violent transnational gang. The Republican president has sought to turn deportation into a test case for his campaign against illegal immigration, despite a U.S. Supreme Court order saying that the administration must work to return Abrego Garcia to the United States. Asked in the interview about whether U.S. citizens and non-citizens both deserve due process as laid out in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, Trump was non-committal. "I do not know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know," Trump said when pressed by Welker. The Fifth Amendment provides due process of law, meaning a person has certain rights when it comes to being prosecuted for a crime. Also, the 14th Amendment says no state can deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Trump said he has brilliant lawyers and they are going to obviously follow what the Supreme Court said. So, suddenly, Trump will follow what the Supreme Court tells him to do, despite deliberately violating their orders and demolishing the separation of powers. Due process is a fundamental concept in the U.S. Constitution that is granted to everyone in the United States, regardless of where they are in the immigration process. People have to be provided the opportunity to prove their case in court before they are summarily abducted from the country and disposed of in a concentration camp in another country. Even Donald Trump was afforded due process during his hearings in 2023 and 2024, up to and including the right to appeal his cases and his guilty verdict on 34 felony counts in the state of New York. The president has repeatedly threatened that he intends to make Canada the 51st state. Before his White House meeting on Tuesday with newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Trump is not backing away from the rhetoric that has angered Canadians. Trump, however, told NBC that it was highly unlikely that the U.S. would need to use military force to make Canada the 51st state. He offered less certainty about whether his repeated calls for the U.S. to take over Greenland from NATO ally Denmark can be achieved without military action. "Something could happen with Greenland," Trump said. "I'll be honest, we need that for national and international security. I don't see it with Canada. I just don't see it. I have to be honest with you." Not only can Trump not stop alienating our allies, but he also has completely driven the relationship between our closest neighbor, Canada, right into the ground. The combination of his narcissism and dementia is more than slightly nauseating, especially when he is threatening military action against Denmark, our NATO ally. If only someone were around who has ever stood up to him and displayed such intense courage. Which brings us to this story. Former Vice President Mike Pence on Sunday said he will receive the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award for his refusal to go along with President Donald Trump's efforts to remain in office after losing the 2020 election. The award recognizes Pence for putting his life and career on the line to ensure the constitutional transfer of presidential power on January 6, 2021, the JFK Library Foundation said when it made the announcement last month. Pence will receive the award at the JFK Library in Boston. Trump pressured Pence to reject election results from swing states where the Republican president falsely claimed the vote was marred by fraud. Pence refused, saying he lacked such authority. When a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, some chanted that they wanted to hang Mike Pence. Pence was whisked away by Secret Service agents, narrowly avoiding a confrontation with the rioters. Our only question to J.D. Vance is, will he have enough Secret Service agents guarding him if the Republicans lose the election in 2029? Only time will tell. That's the news at this hour. Download the Live 365 app to take PEP Radio with you wherever you go. Up next is the weather forecast right here on PEP Radio.